All right.
OT, double OT.
Yes, absolutely. On time, on target. Absolutely. Well, good morning, everybody. This morning we're going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 2. 2 Samuel chapter 2. Huh? Oh. All right. Again, 2 Samuel chapter 2. And if there is nobody else on this prayer list, which we have a lengthy one, and just like Brother Billy prayed for us this morning prior to our lesson, you guys keep those people in prayer, and if you don't mind, make sure you reach out to some of them, and is that for me? If I make a mistake.
I guess where I put it wasn't good enough.
Oh, maybe so. Oh.
Go back home, y'all.
There's that look. Remember that look we were talking about prior to church? There's that look.
I can get it back.
But anyway, keep those people that we have on our prayer list in prayer, and you know, sometimes give them a call. Sometimes it's just a call. That's all they need, you know, to help make it through the week. And so, again, this morning we're going to talk about David being anointed king of Judah, and 2 Samuel chapter 2. So I'm going to start reading there, and I'll probably read about halfway down, and somebody can take over if they want, and then I'll have someone else read.
I would love to, but no.
I know. Okay, here we go. 2 Samuel chapter 2, verse 1, it says, "And it happened after this that David inquired of the Lord, saying, Shall I go up to any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said to him, Go up. David said, Where shall I go up? And he said, To Hebron. So David went up there, and his two wives also, Ahinoam and the Jezreelite, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal, the Carmelite. And David brought up the men who were with him, every man with his household. So they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. Then the men of Judah came and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying, The men of Jabesh Gilead were the ones who buried Saul. So David sent messengers to the men of Jabesh Gilead and said to them, You are blessed of the Lord, for you have shown this kindness to your Lord, to Saul, and have buried him. And now may the Lord show kindness and truth to you. I also repay you this kindness because you have done this thing. Now, therefore, let your hands be strengthened and be valiant, for your master Saul is dead, and also the house of Judah has anointed me king over them." So I'm going to stop right there. Anybody want to help recap on 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse, any of the verses that we had there? Anybody want to help recap? We know that in this last chapter, the last chapter that we had, chapter 1, that the report of Saul's death came to David, and what had happened? Anybody tell me?
The guy came up there and lied and got killed.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Because
An Amalekite came,
if he'd have told the truth, he would have been rewarded.
absolutely, and he came seeking for reward, and wound up causing his death, right? Yeah, because he had lied to David about what had happened, what the events were, and how they transpired, right?
Plus, if you came into that story and didn't know what happened before that, you would have think David was a murderer.
Absolutely.
Like, this guy did him a favor, and why is he killing him?
Yes.
But,
Yeah. So, and we see that, as Brother Terry says, that this guy, he was seeking fulfillment of oneself, and instead of doing exactly how the Lord wanted him to do it, he came up there and tried to lie about it and tried to get some gain, and wound up losing. So, and David, after that, what had happened? David and his men tore their cloths and lamented over King Saul and Jonathan and the rest of the brothers, right? And so now we see David has went up and to Hebron, and the people there over Judah came and made him king over them. Right? It says David had already been privately anointed by king by Samuel. This anointing recognized his rule in the southern area of Judah. Later, he would be anointed as king over all Israel. And that says the men of Jabesh Gilead were a city of Israel east of the Jordan, demonstrated its loyalty by Saul by giving him a proper burial. And we saw this in the latter parts where we know that what had happened to Saul and his brother and his sons.
They put themselves in a bad situation.
Whoa.
They got their heads chopped off and hung on the wall, right? And the men of Jabesh Gilead did what?
What got
Got them all.
Yeah, I said, no, we're not going to have that. You're not going to do that to the king. And so they went and took Saul and his men and sons and took them off the wall and brought them back and burned them and gave them a proper burial. So, so right here we see David doing what to for the men of Jabesh Gilead because of the significance of what they did.
He blessed them.
Yeah.
Bless them because,
But before he even went to Hebron, he asked God, what do you want me to do?
Absolutely, Jackie. That's the answer I was looking for. Before he even went, he inquired of the Lord, and he says, "Where do you want me to go, and what do you want me to do?" Absolutely. And we notice this is starting to take place. We know that David was in a bad place, and after he got out of that bad place, he started doing what? Communicating with the Lord, right? And a lot of times, isn't it funny how if we do something and we find ourselves doing something and we get under that conviction, what do? We go to the Lord, right? Lord, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to go about doing this now? So here we see David inquiring of the Lord, and then also giving the men of Jabesh Gilead, giving them favor, and saying that they did good and in God's eyes. All right, so
when he inquires and he hears God's answer, he doesn't go, no, I don't think that's right for me. He just does it.
absolutely, it's strict obedience, right? Strict
He never
obedience.
questions, he just does it.
Right, absolutely. Now, there is parts in the Bible where we have people that do question God, right?
Right.
But you're right, David, he inquires of the Lord, and then he acts upon what the Lord tells him. So,
Anyone who says they haven't thought about disobedience is,
right, lying to themselves.
well, I wouldn't go that far, but yes.
Yeah, they're being taunted by the little G God of this world. How about that? Is that better?
And, we always say, well, I wish God would just show me.
Yeah.
Show me what you want, God, what you want to do next. I'm afraid we'd all run from the room screaming.
Yes, exactly.
You want what?
You gotta be careful what you pray about. You gotta be specific.
Absolutely. It says right there,
You
right
might
there
get
where it
what you
says
pray
in verse 7 where it says, now therefore let your hands be strengthened and be valiant. Your master Saul is dead, and also the house of Judah has anointed me king over them. So it says David referred to Saul as, their master. It says your master, so as not to antagonize the men of Jabesh Gilead. He sought to win Israel over to his side, not force them into submission. He wanted to find favor in them as well. He didn't, it wasn't like he was saying it to antagonize them. He was, telling them, demonstrating the fact that, he had saw where they had done something good and he wanted to reward them, So here we see that he said that, may your, what is it on, it says, therefore, let your hands be strengthened and be valiant. Okay? Does someone have something? I know there's a different translation out there. What does yours say, Jackie? Is yours say the same thing or is yours different?
That says the same thing.
Same thing?
No.
Who has something different? Anybody? King James Version, what's that say? I'm the new
It's
King
not much
James.
different because
Maybe it says be ye strengthened, be ye valiant, ye valiant.
Okay, I got you.
that's back on the chain.
I got you. Because, sometimes they'll have a different word in there
Yeah.
to describe it. So we're going to continue on with number 8 there. Verse 8, it says, but Abner, the son of Ner, commander of Saul's army, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. And he made him king over Gilead, over the Asherites, over Jezreel, over Ephraim, over Benjamin, and over all Israel. Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old whenever he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 2 years. Only the house of Judah followed David, and the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. 7 years and 6 months.
I thought all of Saul's sons were killed in battle.
At first I did too when I started.
Sometimes son can be used for grandsons also.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
The other grandson would be the next heirs.
Yes. Because in the last chapter we did see that it said Saul and all his sons. So it says Abner was Abner, cousin of Saul and general of his army, and we find that in 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 50 and 51. Did not desire to follow the Lord's new anointed king, but placed Ishbosheth on the throne, causing tension between Judah and the rest of the tribes in Israel. Ishbosheth, his name means man of shame. Saul's only surviving son was, only surviving son was placed as king over the northern tribes of Israel and the eastern one across the Jordan. Mahanaim, a town in Gilead to the east of the Jordan River. Ishbosheth established himself there and reigned for 2 years in this city. This was the same city where Jacob saw the angels while on his way to,
Haran?
Huh? What'd you say, brother?
Is that not just Haran?
No, it says Peniel.
Peniel, house of God?
Yeah, Peniel.
I think it's Green Homes Concordance.
It says it was appointed to be a Levitical city from the territory of Gad. It later became the haven for David while fleeing from Absalom, and because likely it was well fortified area. But we know and we see that we see here that Saul's cousin Abner, who was his general, he wasn't a Christian, was he? He didn't want to follow David. He didn't want to. He wanted Ishbosheth to take the kingship. So they set it up in another city. But you see how short his reign was, right?
Much years.
Wonder why. Anybody?
Betrayal.
Betrayal, absolutely. So it says David, while the rest of Israel recognized the reign of Ishbosheth as well. So 7 years and 6 months, several years passed before Ishbosheth assumed the throne of Israel, so that Ishbosheth's 2-year reign came at the end of David's 7-year and 6-month reign over Judah. Says it must have taken Ishbosheth about 5 years to regain the northern territory from the Philistines. So, yeah, from Palestinians, I meant Philistines. So, learning just a little bit more there. So, anybody else want to continue reading there? Brother Terry, you want
What
to pick
verse
up?
you on?
We came down to,
12.
12.
Israel and Judah at war. Now after the son of Ner and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to
Gibeon.
And Joab the son of
Zeruiah.
and the servants of David went out and met by them by the pool of Gibeon. So they sat down one on one side of the pool and the other on the other side of the pool. Then Abner said to Joab, "Let the young men now arise and compete before us." And Joab said, "Let them arise." So they arose and went over by number 12 from Benjamin, followers of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and 12 from the servants of David. Each one grasped his opponent by the head and thrust his sword in his opponent's side. So they fell down together. Therefore that place called the Field of Sharp Swords, which is in Gibeon. So there was a very fierce battle that day, and Abner and the men of Israel were beaten before the servants of David. Now the three sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab and
Ishbosheth.
and
Big word.
Yep, and
Asahel. Asahel. I just said Asahel.
Asahel.
Yeah, Asahel.
Asahel. So Asahel pursued Abner, and going he did not turn to the right hand or to the left from following Abner. Then Abner looked behind him and said, "Are you Asahel?" And he answered, "I am." And Abner said to him, "Turn aside to your right hand or to your left, and lay on one of the young men and take his armor for yourself." But Asahel would not turn aside from following him. So Abner said again to Asahel, "Turn aside from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How then could I face your brother Joab?" However, he refused to turn aside. Therefore Abner struck him in the stomach with the blunt end of the spear, so that the spear came out of his back, and he fell down and died on the spot. So it was that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. Joab and Ishbosheth also pursued Abner, and the sun was going down. When they came to the hill of Ammah, yes,
Yeah, Amma.
which is before Giah, by the road of the wilderness of Gibeon. Now the children of Benjamin gathered together behind Abner and became a unit and took the stand on top of the hill. Then Abner called to Joab and said, "Shall the sword devour forever? Do you not know that it will be bitter in the latter end? How long will it be then until you tell the people to return from pursuing
Their brother. All right, stop right there. So, again, what do we see going on right here? What took place? It said that now Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon, and Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met them by the pool of Gibeon. So they sat down, and they did one on one side, one on the other side, and they said, what did they decide that they were going to do?
They were gonna fight to see which one was better, basically what they were doing.
Yeah, and so
Which side was stronger?
which side was stronger? Absolutely. So they had 12 on one side and 12 on the other side, and then they locked up and they grasped each other, and then what?
They killed each other.
They killed each other. So it was just basically a suicide mission for those that stood up, right? I was going to just see who could outdo who. So it says rather than an all-out war, Abner proposed a representative contest between champions on behalf of the opposing armies, because all 24 of the contestants lay fallen and dying in combat. The contest settled nothing but excited passion, so that a battle between the two armies ensued. So basically, again, basically what they did was they lost their best warriors to start off the bat, right? So their best warriors are sitting there dying, and some of them hadn't died yet, but some of them were on their way to dying. And so that kind of hyped everything up, and they, instead of having an all-out war like they began, they thought, that this little contest was going to keep from happening. It happened anyway, right? So one had the other one on the run, and the other one's like, hey, this is not going to be good. In the end, all of us are going to have some battle scars, So it says Abishai, the brother of Joab, he was an aide to David throughout the rise of power. Abishai was with David in the camp of Saul when David had the opportunity to kill Saul, and encouraged the murder of Saul, which David would not allow. It says Asahel, and another brother of Joab, Asahel was single-minded with dogged determination, though he was extremely fleet-footed, which I don't know what fleet-footed means. Does anybody know what that means?
Fast.
Fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
quick.
he was fast, yeah.
No.
Yeah, the determination would prove to be fatal. In other words, he was following Abner, and Abner was like, he
Abner was a general,
yeah.
and you don't get to be general without knowing how to whoop a little tail.
Yeah, combat skills, absolutely.
Especially in those days.
Yeah, and it said, and he told him, take up your armor. It says to gain the armor of the enemy general, Abner who was fleeing to the defeat, would be to possess the greatest trophy. So Asahel was ambitious to get it, while Abner kept warning him and suggested to take the armor of some other soldier for his trophy, since he was not able to defeat Abner. Abner was saying, look, you're just going to die. You're not getting this armor. You might as well just go ahead and turn over and get somebody else's armor as a trophy. But we see here that Asahel was what? Again, he was looking to get the generals. He was ambitious. He was like, nope, I'm coming after yours. So,
Can you imagine the force necessary to drive the butt end of a spear?
all the way through somebody's body, out their back, yes. It takes a lot of power. It takes a lot of power just to put it in through the front, but to push it all the way out the back. Of course, I don't know if you had a little bit of help, like a little bit of momentum, somebody coming at you. It might not be as hard, but still would be hard. The blunt end, yeah. What you got to remember, spears were what? About this big around?
Probably
About the big rounds of broom handle, maybe a little bit bigger. So.
A lot bigger if you're Goliath.
Oh yeah, yeah. Goliath was huge. It'd be like putting a 2x4 or a 4x4. 4x4, yeah.
But a little bitty rock.
It says, how then could I face your brother? This is what Abner, had said. Says Abner sought to spare Asahel, so to avoid unnecessary vengeance from Joab or David. Abner tried to give Asahel reasons to stop his pursuit, but he was determined. Says Asahel did not wish to strike down. Abner didn't want to strike down Asahel, but Asahel, we see he refused to give up. Right? He refused to listen, and he was forced to stop his efforts with a fatal stab by the blunt end of the spear, as Brother Rick was saying. Again, you got to know that Abner was a well-trained general in the skills of fighting, war fighting, to have put the blunt end of his spear through Asahel's chest and through all the way through his
Abner
back.
was right. It did cause problems
Yes,
throughout
yes.
the armies, and he was eventually killed for it.
Yeah. Where he says, shall the sword devour forever? Abner had earlier proposed that the hostilities began, when they began, he now proposed that they, would cease. He's trying to stop it. He knew that what he had done started the war, but he was now like, look, let's just stop, but it was too late. The damage had already been done, right? So let's see, which one are we on here now? We're on 24, is it, or 26?
The 27 first start.
27, yeah, 27. Okay, I'm gonna read the rest of it here and go down to, what's it, 32? It says, and Joab said, as God lives, unless you had spoken, surely then by morning all the people would have given up pursuing their brethren. So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still and did not pursue Israel anymore, nor did they fight anymore. Then Abner and his men went on all that night through the plain and across over the Jordan and went through all Bethron, and they came to Mahanaim. So Joab returned from pursuing Abner, and when he had gathered all the people together, they were missing David's servants, 19 men and Asahel. But the servants of David had struck down Benjamin and Abner's men, 360 men who died. Then they took Asahel and buried him in the father's tomb, in his father's tomb, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at daybreak. So, a mighty battle, right? And it looked like Abner and his men, they substantially lost casualties, didn't they? We see that it says here, 360 men died, but only 19 died of Joab. So you can tell that they were a lot better trained, and you can tell who the more powerful of the two were.
You could also tell the ones that God on their side.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The ones who had God on their side lost 19 casualties, So, good chapter. Good chapter here. Short, but very sweet. Any questions about what we went over today?
I would say
Where were we? The pastor asked, where were we?
the limitation on the 2 years, if you go back throughout history, even after when the sword never left David's house, it makes sense. Those were kings that focused on the world and the evil things. Those who focus on spiritual things and put their faith in God will let their reigns last longer times.
Right, absolutely.
And there's a difference.
Absolutely.
Well, also, again, we see also this kid was, even though he was on, I guess you would say, the right side,
Thank you.
his pride and greed got him killed.
Yes, absolutely. We see Asahel, his ambition, and again, like Terry said, his pride of wanting, hey, the general's
Or
armor.
he wanted to
He wanted-
glory,
yeah.
getting the general's armor,
Yeah,
the general fight, something.
yeah, like,
Go home.
yeah, turn back, and he warned him several times, so he warned him several times that he wasn't up to the task of getting his armor, so, yeah, and therefore, a real, travesty, a bad death too, so. No questions? Well, good. Anybody, has anything or wants to ask any questions or whatever, Brother Rick and I will definitely be on standby. And, but with that being said, if there's nothing else,
Under the bus.
yeah, absolutely. I gotta make the pastor work too. Brother Frank, will you close us?
Dear Heavenly Father, we do thank you once again, Lord, for this day and blessings. We ask that you would put your hand upon each and every one of the spoken
Yes,
and
Lord.
unspoken prayer requests. We thank you for this lesson that's been brought today, Lord. And
Yes.
ask that you go forward to the psalm service and the preaching afterwards, Lord, and keep us safe as we go our separate ways and bring us back to the appointed hour. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.